welcome to a special edition of Death Curse Society. I'm Red Crank. I got Zigzag over there. There he is.
Hey.
And we have an exclusive interview with the writer-director of films such as Caveat, and right now in theaters, Oddity. If you haven't gone to see this yet, highly recommend you going and checking this out in theater. We have Mr. Damian McCarthy joining us from Ireland. How are you today, sir?
Very good. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. Thank you for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
We've been fans of Caveat for the last few years since that came out on Shudder. That was our first experience to it, I guess, in 22 or 21, 22.
21.
Yeah. And we're looking forward to this one once we heard about it several months ago, especially since the South by Southwest. But before we get into Oddity, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you grew up and what attracted you to filmmaking in the beginning?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up and I live in the southwest of Ireland in Cork. And my parents had a video shop, a VHS rental shop growing up. So it was just spending a lot of time in the shop after school, you know, waiting for my mom to finish work. And you're just always in the horror section looking at that 80s, 90s VHS artwork and reading the backs of the boxes. And I think it just really just sparked off that imagination to begin with. And it just began a lifelong love of horror films. And then I think just, you know, it would have been kind of 2000s, maybe early 2000s, I really started to get really kind of serious about wanting to be a filmmaker. But this was just before the digital revolution as well, that like the only people you heard who were making films that had no contacts in the industry would have been like Robert Rodriguez or Kevin Smith, that kind of shooting on 16 mil kind of thing. But I went to film school here in Cork, and we shot on 16 mil and 8 mil and stuff like this. And yeah, just from there, just kind of a very slow, probably 15-year process of just getting into it and giving up and coming back and making shorts and, you know, having some success with the short films, which then led to Caveat. And yeah, that's probably a real quick a quick rundown of it.
I love the video store aspect of this. That puts a million questions in my head, and I think I might have picked up some influences we'll get into a little later with this last one with Oddity. So I want to bounce them off you and see if I'm in the ballpark, so to speak.
Yeah. Excellent.
What were
I used to collect some of the. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying with the VHS story. I used to collect a lot of those old posters because you see it in your backgrounds. You've got so much going on that. Yeah, I used to have all that. You know, my bedroom used to be covered in all those old movie posters. I wish I still had them. There was some classic.
Same.
Yeah.
I think I do still have a bunch of my movie posters that are just in storage right now.
All right. Okay.
I had tons of them. Probably like 3 or 4 boxes just full of posters.
Yeah.
What were some of your early horror films that led you to want to write and direct horror yourself?
It's probably a lot of stuff from the 80s, like Poltergeist and let's see, you know, Child's Play, Fright Night, The Thing, all the classics. Probably the one that really made me seriously want to do it. I was studying to be an electrician, and it was in like my final year of college. And I discovered The Evil Dead 2, and it just, I mean, I always loved films, but just when I saw that film, I was like, oh my God, it was just so, it really changed, just completely just changed the way I even looked at films. It was just so, you know, there's nothing I can say about the film that describes how influential it has been for so many filmmakers, or even just for people who love horror. But that was it. I just said, like, I got to figure out how to make films. I just absolutely loved the film and watched it every single day after college when I should have been, you know, learning about, you know, capacitors and diodes and this kind of stuff. Instead, it was like, I want to watch this guy fighting his severed hand. Much more interesting. So, yeah, that was definitely, that was it. It was such a hugely influential film, and just learning more about how they made it, and then learning how they made The Evil Dead. And, you know, it just really made me want to do it.
All right. Ziggy, you want to jump in?
Yeah, you mentioned taking your film education. What do you think is the greatest benefit of attending a film school, in your opinion?
Well, for me, what was good for me, and I think about it sometimes, like I did 3 years. One, I think it's like you have to, we had to pitch our movies, we'll say. So I went to St. John's College in Cork. And the way it worked would be there was only so much film stock, so like everybody would get a reel of 16 mil or whatever. But so you'd have to pitch your idea to the class. And I'd be a terrible salesman for to pitch my movies, to the elevator pitch. Some people are brilliant at it. I'm not. Like if you ask me what's caveat about it, say, well, there's a girl and she has a bunny and it drums, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to finance that. So that's good practice, so to kind of make you see how much you wanted to get up in front of 100 other students and say, well, I have this idea, and try to sell it to somebody and try to be concise with your pitch. I'm still not any good at it, but it's still a good place to, I think film, it was a good thing that they had in their film school. Just working with crews, getting to work with different people. That's really good, because obviously you can't really make a film on your own. It's so collaborative that you have to, take other people's ideas and work with them and try to get the best out of people. That was probably the best. I think that the thing is that in film school, though, I made a lot of short films in Super 8 and 8 mil, and 16 mil and stuff like this. And they're terrible. They're unwatchably bad short films. So I left very disheartened because I couldn't get them screened at any film festivals. You see other people in your class having a lot of in your filmmaking class having success with their shorts, getting them into film festivals. That's all good too. That's all really good stuff to learn, because it's an industry that's just full of you're writing scripts, you're pitching, constant rejection, and you got to develop a very thick skin. So for that, again, for me, this is my experience of film school. I found that good, making a lot of terrible short films, and then watching them and saying, well, here's where I went wrong. This isn't really a short film. I'm trying to squeeze a feature film into 10 minutes,
right,
which isn't what a short is. But I think what is great about film school is that, like, you'll meet your teachers, your professors. If they're very passionate about film, they'll introduce you to a lot of stuff that maybe you wouldn't have sought out yourself, like foreign cinema and older movies. And we had a great teacher. His name was Ed Kadajeski, and he would have Oddity's dedicated to him. Ed passed away a couple of years ago, so Ed would have been great for recommending movies, or just being very passionate about films or directors that he really liked. For that, it's probably the best thing. I mean, it's a very long answer, so it's probably just meeting other people that are like-minded, that want to make films for a living, and also just opening your mind to maybe cinema that you wouldn't have found yourself.
Right. A lot of filmmakers seem to find like those lifelong partners, producing partners at film school.
Yeah.
So that seems to be one of the benefits that we get told about from other filmmakers as well.
Yeah.
There's a minimalist quality to a lot of your films, including most of your short films, it seems like. But I don't think a lot of other filmmakers seem to utilize that tactic as well as you do. What are some of the tricks that you use to make less seem like more in your films?
It's funny. I think a lot of it, that if there's a style, or if there's something that I'm doing that maybe I'm not aware of, it definitely began just with budget limitations. We just didn't have anything. Like, even the short films were very much like, we might have one interesting prop, or we might have been able to, we had made these short films for a couple $100 with friends and family helping out, and maybe one technical guy who is your entire crew, essentially. It started with that. It's just, if the films look like they're, like there's not much in the frame, it's very much that. Even like I was talking to my buddy the other day who built the sets in Caveat, and he starred in my first good short film, which was He Dies at the End. And we were talking about, if we look at Caveat now, there's nothing in the rooms. It doesn't look like anybody lives in this house. There's not even a table in this room, and there should be so much more going on. But I guess, sometimes it kind of works out that it's like, oh, the room is so empty and maybe lonely that this is, maybe it kind of benefits us in a way. Sometimes if you'd had a bigger budget, maybe it wouldn't have been as good, or the film, something would have been a different vibe to it. But I think it just seems to be carrying over now, that I just like to keep, keep things simple.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure I watched your entire filmography, at least that you have publicly available yesterday. You mentioned the ones that are unbearably horrible to watch that I guess you're never going to release, probably, which I don't blame you. Most of your films are on YouTube though now, so
yeah. Oh yeah.
What were some of the valuable lessons that you learned while working on your short films over the years?
Again, it's just I always just say, I think a lot of filmmakers will say this. It's just filmmaking is problem solving. It's just you have an idea for something, but then it's like, oh, this hasn't worked out the way I wanted to, or what I have in my imagination, I'm not really able to get across very well. And I found that with the short films, I'd storyboard everything, and you try to have a good idea what it looked like, and it's just on the day it's a good lesson. Then it's like it's not really going the way I want, or maybe it's going better. Maybe it's like I got to abandon an idea that I thought really worked, and this is a better thing. So that's probably the biggest thing with the short films is just learning your time constraints. You've got maybe somebody's given you a location for one day, so you got one day to film this. You got to show up prepared, and again, just it's that reward of I never made any money off the short films, but again, you got to travel with it and you get to go to film festivals. It just builds your confidence. You feel better about what you're doing, and that you're making something that somebody is responding to. And I think just in terms of narratively, you just try to keep it short. If anytime film students contact me and saying, I'm making short films, or I've made a short film, will you take a look at it? And you might take a look at it, but this thing could be, they send the link, it's like 30, 45 minutes long. And it's like, it's very hard to program into a film festival. So I'm always saying, like, find the best 4.5 minutes or 5 minutes in this film and cut it down. Now, of course, there's lots of amazing short films that are, 50 minutes long, and the 3/4 are plenty of those, but just, for the most part, short is better. And again, that's something I would have learned from the short films.
Nice. All right. Ziggy, jump in there.
Yeah, we're gonna stay on Caveat for a minute. It became a huge success on Shudder after it spent over a year on the festival circuit. So you actually did get that, that what you didn't get in school, in film school at the time. You got to go, and were you able to feel the audience for that first feature grow over time as you attended each festival? How did it feel as the creator of it all, and just watching it grow like that?
Yeah, it's funny because I was working my day job, still working on, construction sites as an electrician laborer, just as I was working on the movie. So it'd be kind of a case of going to work for a little bit, earn your rent, do a bit of editing, sound design, go back, do it again. This went on for like a year, year and a half, 2 years. So by the time you get to the end of that, you really can't stand the film. You're going, this film, I don't care how, I don't think you can look at a film for that long and at the end of it go, this doesn't make any sense. It's like you could look at a masterpiece of, you could look at John Carpenter's The Thing and watch it, for every day for 2 years. And that's probably a bad example because I still think that would work. But just, something you've done yourself where you're going to be quite critical. When we finished the film, the lockdown started. So I didn't actually get to go to any film festivals. I think all film festivals were either cancelled or they were online. And we sent this thing out, and it was really from a distance. So I didn't get to watch it with an audience. I think it wasn't until like San Sebastian in Spain or something like this. It was quite late that the film had been out a while before I got to see this thing. I saw it felt very anticlimactic in terms of I had no idea if this even worked. And you'd get random messages from people saying, I saw this thing, I really liked it. And you're going, okay, great. Like somebody has seen this thing. But it's funny because now with Oddity, like Oddity was just released this weekend, and I've, you try not to read too much about it online, but I have seen that there is talk of people who had seen Caveat, which is really nice. You're really happy that people have seen this, but they're then excited that Oddity's coming out because like, oh, it's the guy who made that, Caveat, that he's made something else. And then people who hadn't heard of Caveat, they're now going back to watch it, which is which now it feels quite rewarding. I went to South Korea to Baifan last week, and Oddity had screened there, but I didn't get to travel with it again because of the pandemic. But I went this time, but there was people who had seen Caveat there, but they were coming to me with like posters of Caveat and wanted to talk about Caveat, even though they'd come to see Oddity. So
Nice.
it kind of feels now that I'm seeing, oh great, somebody did see that film and it played well, which is great, which is obviously why you make these things.
And they sat on the questions for 3 years till they did get a chance to talk to you too. So I mean, that's in there, So I mean, that's great. That's awesome. That's got to feel good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that describes us exactly, because as soon as we saw the trailer for Oddity, and said, from the creator of Caveat, or however it was phrased, we were all just excited to go see this. So
you people want scary. You want scary. You've been asking for it. Here we go.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, people do seem to like Oddity more. They're saying that it's a step up, which is I guess you always want to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
you shook me a couple of times with this one, so that's hard. That's hard.
All right.
In Caveat, you had the drum playing rabbit. In Oddity, you have the wooden man, is I think what you refer to him as.
Oh my God!
Along with the haunted bell and many other items that are in Darcy's antique store. And I've read stories that you like to collect unusual items, and maybe you have an obsession with haunted items. I don't know. My first question on this is, do you believe in hauntings, rather it be places, people, or items? And secondly, what is one of your favorite haunted items that you own, or unusual items that you own?
I don't know if any of them are actually haunted. I do like just going to these, charity shops and antique shops, and just where people, like a flea market or whatever, and just picking up odd stuff. I think it's just because some of this stuff you look and you go like, well, who made this? It's so old, and it almost feels like there's a clear history around this thing. So I wonder what that is. Like even the desk bell, it was something I came across and just really liked it. This ivory button and just the design of it. It looks old. I was like going, that's kind of cool. And I just bought it and I thought, oh yeah, imagine if that was haunted and it summoned a bellboy. And this was like 10 years ago or so. And you kind of end up buying these random things and they're just sitting in the office and they seem to find their way into the scripts then. Or sometimes you'll have an idea for something and you go, I must keep an eye out for that now. And it's really just because it'll look interesting on camera is more than anything. In terms of believing in any of that stuff, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever had. I mean, I've certainly worked in old houses, and when I was an electrician, and a few of them, there was a bit of a odd vibe in them. They'd be very old places, and I have heard people walking around upstairs or up and down the stairs, but you're in the place. You're working there late at night on your own. There's nobody else there, so I don't know. I guess I'm unsure.
So no personal ghost encounters or a haunted experience that you can tell us about?
Nothing that's really all that interesting in terms of, I just still don't know if I really believe in any of it. I mean, that's probably as close as I've ever gotten. It's like, oh, there's someone walking around upstairs in these places I used to work at, but you go there and, you look upstairs, there's nobody there. That's just, and now at the time it's very unsettling and creepy, but no, never seen anything. I think that's, what about you guys? Do you believe?
Well, I absolutely do. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'm 52 and there's just a couple of things in my life that have happened I cannot explain.
All right.
And it would take a while to get into it. And honestly, it's quite boring, but I'll just leave it at that. I'm unsure. I'm unsure.
Yeah. I've seen way too many weird things in my life that I can't figure out what it was or who it was exactly.
All right.
I don't know what it is, but
yeah.
I absolutely believe there's something floating around. I mean, we used to record the show in another room in my place, and somebody kept pointing out, dude, Crank, you've got orbs going into your head like every 10 seconds during certain episodes that we were talking about. So I started asking like the former owners of this place, did anybody ever die in here? What the hell is going on here? And I don't record in that room anymore. In fact, I don't do shit in that room anymore. It's basically just a storeroom right now. But, But yeah, there's something out there. I just don't know what.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that. Yeah, just who knows? I guess we'll find out someday, I suppose.
All right. Ziggy, can you do 10?
Yeah, that's where I was going. While we were researching for this, we found out that you filmed Oddity at the same location as Caveat. How? Because they look like completely two different houses. What were some of the important elements of the set design here? Is it just simply more budget, or what? What can you tell us about it?
It's funny because I'm friends. From Bantry in West Cork, in the southwest of Ireland, and there's a large estate there, Bantry House, and the house is hundreds of years old. It's huge area, huge property, and I'm friends with the family there. And at the back of the house, there's this renovated stables, and it was an exhibition center or something like this in the 90s, and it looks the way it does in the movie. It's a big empty room, and we went to shoot Caveat. I had no budget for a studio, nothing like this, no money to rent out a place. So just because I was friends with them, I said, look, we want to build a few sets. And I think what we built in there was the bathroom and Olga's bedroom, Olga's corridor, and then I think where we built the antique shop for Oddity is the sitting room in Caveat. And so it's sets. It's just very basic, a couple of flats, old wallpaper, but it's in that room. It's in that same room where everything in Oddity takes place. And my idea for filming in there was, one, it's a big room so we can build all our stuff in there. And I thought, well, the walkway is overhead as well. So whoever wanted to get shots like a bird's eye POV looking down, we can't afford a crane or anything like this, but that's the way to do it. I'm not doing any overhead shots anyway, but I just spent a lot of time in the room and just thought it was an interesting location without the sets. Like, get rid of the sets, and just looking around was like, yeah, it's something about this that could be kind of interesting. Again, if I was to make a low budget movie, I can kind of come back here if they let me, and I could write a story around this. So I just wrote Oddity around this room, just saying, well, what if moved in here and tried to renovate it into a house? And that's pretty much it. Again, it's like that really old film school idea of just write around things that maybe you have access to, but nobody else does. As opposed to trying to find the location, or everybody has something that somebody else doesn't have, that they can, they have access to an interesting location or a prop or a person or something that'll make their film stand out. And just with me, it was very lucky that it was that big room that I've made 2 films in.
The production design on both films is excellent, because they like he said, they look like 2 completely different locations. It could not be the same place, but that's amazing that you could do it that way.
Yeah.
I caught Oddity last week. Loved it. I'd been hearing the hype and some of the good reviews, especially like I mentioned after South by Southwest in March. This lived up to the hype. Now, granted, I'm a fan of the slow burn style of filmmaking. They call me Mr. Slow Burn on the show a lot of the times. But how do you create such an atmospheric scene with the camera that just sucks the audience in? And like, what does that start and end with for you when it comes to atmosphere?
I suppose if you know where you're going, like if like I'm going to have a scare at the end of this, I'm going to have something that's going to release the tension. Call it a jump scare, I guess. You're going to have some release of we're building up to something. Then it's just all that reverse engineering of, well, how do I build up to that and create tension with the camera, with the performance to lead up to that point. So I think it's just, for me, it's kind of knowing where I'm going to end up and then working back to get them to that point in the creepiest or the funniest way, I guess. How do I reach that? That's what I've always tried to do with my short films and with Caveat as well. Now, Caveat has gotten criticism. They say that it's too slow. They said that like that whole movie is just waiting for something to happen in the last 15 minutes. I think it's a fair criticism. Like it is a very slow movie, but again, it's kind of the necessity of it. Like we had one character, and if he keeps seeing scary shit the whole way through the film, it's hard to reset him. It's hard to reset his character because how is he shaking this thing off? And you don't want him to wake up and it was just a dream, like a fake out kind of scare. So it kind of felt like we have to continuously build this tension until we get to the third act. Whereas with Oddity, because I have more characters, I can kind of scare somebody and they can leave the film, or I can go to a different character and not have the fallout of what they're after experiencing. So there was a little bit more entertainment, I guess, with Oddity, because you can kind of, every 10 pages in the script, there can be another scare. There can be something that's keeping it a little bit more, keeping it moving that way.
Okay. Your slow burn, so to speak, though, here is absolutely fascinating, the story. So, I mean, it helps. I mean, it absolutely feeds to it. So, I mean, you don't really notice that you're being dragged slowly to this. So, but I mean, the thing I hear people keep saying is unsettling. It's how they're describing this in one word. And I totally agree, because there are times where it's vulnerable and unsafe and something's coming, but I mean, I haven't felt some of these feelings since from the 80s like that when I was a kid. So, I mean, props for that, at least,
Cheers. But, thanks.
Yeah. You had some questions about references to 80s. You want to mention that now?
Some influences maybe into Oddity. Something that hit me right in the face. I mean, obviously the revenge and the vengeance line is strong there with the twin. I love that. But I mean, as far as just like a basic influence, I picked up a lot of Pumpkinhead here. Was that something at all? Am I crazy, or is there anything there? I mean, is it just coincidental?
Just tell him he's crazy.
Go ahead. I mean,
I don't. It's a funny one because, I think I've seen a lot of horror films. I always think, I've seen everything, and then some. Let's say for Oddity now, for example, I keep seeing Pin. Something about I don't know, is he like some kind of a wooden man from this movie called Pin or Fear or something from the 80s. I've never seen it. And then you see it and you go, oh yeah, that looks like it would be an influence this. And I remember in Caveat, I had Inma playing this dead body, this dead woman in the wall. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were saying, they were sending me references of is this what influenced it? Oh fuck, what is it? It's like a it's a movie that has 3 parts to it. It's gonna drive me mad.
Like a trilogy
Creep Show. Kind of it's probably Chief Woodenhead, right? From the Creep Show, the Indian.
That's what I had seen that. So but this one anyway, it was called Blackwater or something from I can't think now, but it's from sort of that reference to Dead Woman. But anyway, I just think that all of this stuff, that there's no direct influence with me. It's just I've seen so much stuff that a little bit of everything just seems to find its way in there. There's no real clear a clear influence from it. It could be a bit of Creep Show and a bit of a slasher movies from the 80s I really like. Or I think a film I was watching a bit before it was Alone in the Dark with Dwight Schultz from the 80s. That kind of, that film, even though it's not anything like it, but that kind of campy kind of trapped in the house and these characters, that seemed to be at the back of my mind a little bit when I was making it.
I guess that reference I mentioned, I can boil it down to the price of vengeance without spoiling it.
Yeah,
I think that's what I'm picking up with it.
Yeah, no, it is again, but yeah, it's absolutely, you could say, yeah. I mean, I've seen. I wouldn't be a big fan of the movie. I've seen it a few times, and it never clicked with me the way a lot of the real cult classic horrors did. But yeah, I'm sure that there's an influence there as well from all this stuff.
Sure. I mean, when you mentioned the video store too, I went, "Oh hell yeah! We got to go here and ask at least." So,
well, it's been confirmed, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. Zigzag is crazy. All right,
we knew this.
We knew this. All right. Casting Carolyn Bracken in the dual role of Darcy and Danny was outstanding. Was it always your intention to have the same actor play both roles? And what was the purpose of that choice?
It's because one, it's that horror trope again, a blind medium, like somebody out of Don't Look Now. Twins, the idea of the twins was just that they don't share any scenes together. So it was very much like, how do I how do I get it across that these people are very close? I mean, they could just be siblings, it could just be sisters played by different people. It was like, yeah, but if they're twins, you instantly have that connection. Is the audience get that straight away? Like, oh yeah, like if one of these, if one loses the other, it's a very believable. You know, it's like a shortcut just to say how close they are. So because there is no scenes, that there's no time to develop that relationship in the film, because I knew I wanted to keep it short at like an hour and a half. So it just seemed to be a shortcut to say, well, if one loses the other, they're going to, in this manner in the film as well, they're going to take it, you know, they're going to take it pretty seriously.
Okay.
I had read that in the synopsis. I knew they were twins just because of that, you know. But I think it was pretty easily connected there, though. I mean, especially with how you did it, you know, when she finds the spot and everything, and so yeah, I mean, I loved it. I thought it worked 100%. I was captivated by that whole story, the
That's
whole
great.
thing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and you try to write these things as well, where you're trying to get good actors to come on board and give them something kind of challenging. And I was a fan of Carlin's from You Are Not My Mother, so it was like, oh, you'll get to play twins, and they're very different characters. I mean, I think actors would kind of be into that and go, oh, that sounds challenging, or that sounds like something cool to do. So, you know.
Well, and speaking of Carolyn, you mentioned in another interview that when you were first talking to her about the roles in Oddity, that she asked some great questions about the characters. Can you give us any insight into those conversations, like what she asked you and how you responded, if you remember some of that?
Let me see if I do. I think I was just trying to find a difference between the characters, and with Danny, it was to make her very sympathetic and to get the audience on her side. You know, that like she really hasn't done anything wrong in the film, and just to you know, just to make the audience very, very fearful that something will happen to her. But then I think, as far as I remember, with Darcy, we did want there to be a little bit of an edge to her. You know, you did want her to show up and going, we don't really know much about this person. So like when she shows up at their house, there could be an element of like, well, is she here as a threat? Has our villain just arrived? Like, is it going to be about this couple now being tortured by this, you know, this lunatic showing up, or where are we with this? So there was a little bit of just trying to watch that as we were, you know, developing the character and shooting it, just to kind of have that balance of, well, we want the audience to be on your side, but maybe there's a little bit of an edge to her too, where we're not fully sure where we are with her. But then by the time you get to the end, you go, okay, she's our hero. I guess that was the challenge with it.
I love how you set that up too, when she does arrive at the house and she's just waiting out there. She hasn't come to the door, obviously, you know, somebody's dropped her off and she just standing there waiting for someone to notice her.
Yeah.
I love that.
I had a comment, but I can't make it because it'll spoil, so I'm not going to do it. about Darcy, but I mean, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't.
You can't word it in the right way?
I can't.
Hey, can you jump to 15 for me?
Yes.
Because I want to say 14 for me, because that was something I noticed, and I want to ask that question.
Oh, you must have added that after. I don't have it.
Oh, you don't? All right.
No.
Well, I'll just do 14 real quick.
Yeah.
While another character in Oddity, Olin Boole, is a great character to begin with, you also have a short film titled How Olin Lost His Eye. Now, are these the same characters? And if so, what has happened to Olin in between the two films?
It's not the same character, but I guess, you know, if you really want to, you know, who knows as well, because you know, there's a lot of unreliable narrators in the film, and it could be maybe How Olin Lost His Eye, the short film, is how Tig's character imagines what happened to him. You know, I mean, he says that, you know, people say that he beat his mother to death because she had blinded him. Who knows? You know, I know people like to connect these things. I think it was originally, I think in the first drafts, it was, yeah, this is just the same kid now growing up. Okay. But I think just for, you know, for plot and for narrative, you need to kind of let these things go. And it is disappointing because you're already going like, oh yeah, this is great because this is like a character from a short film now as an adult. But no, I just needed him to have more of a richer backstory and make him a little bit more, I guess, untrustworthy because of the things he'd done.
That whole fucking thing too, man. Her face just tells it perfect, you know. That whole scenario, just like what to do in that scenario. You know what I mean? And you nailed it. I mean, that is so good. Because I was sitting there going like, "There's no fucking way I'm opening the door. Not a chance. Not a chance."
Yeah. Great. It was actually it was last scene we shot as well, and we were feeling pretty good about the film as well at that stage. We felt like it would have been a really good shoot. Everything ran very smoothly, such a good crew, and then that was the last thing we did. So it was great because everybody was very loose, and they were just great. They were just the two of them were brilliant.
Another impressive quality in your films is the sound design and music. While I was watching your filmography, I saw that style grow and improve, especially through the short films and then Caveat and Oddity. Oddity's sound design definitely brings you inside that old creaky house. And even though you primarily spend a lot of time in just that one room, what elements do you try to capture in sound design, and how do you achieve that?
Well, I mean, sound design's everything in a horror film anyway. It's like doesn't really matter how good your images are. If it doesn't sound scary, I don't think it's going to be scary. Just with the score, so I think one with the score working with Richard Mitchell is just we try to keep it creepy the whole way through, because sometimes when you hit that third act, the score can suddenly start to ramp up and it can become a bit too action or a bit too you lose that edge. You look at a film like Hideo Nakata's Ringu. I mean, that thing just seems to almost get quieter when you hit the third act. It just gets stranger. It's like, what the fuck am I listening to? And I loved that about that. So that's something we've tried to do. But then with the sound design, it was very much kind of in mind even from the script. Like Eve the Wooden Man is designed to look like he's always yelling. You know, he's pained and he's tortured, and that was very much like going, well, if his mouth is closed or if we design him any other way, what's the sound? Whereas it looks like he's screaming. It left us with room then when we got to the sound design that we can just make him sound like anything, you know. And then a lot of it then is just working with Asa Hand, who did the sound design, and kind of just my own experience of sound design in my shorts and Caveat. It was just a lot of messing around. It was like watching the footage, trying something and trying stuff that's way out there. Go like, let's just put that in there and see how it sounds. And sometimes you'll get this weird that marries really well, like that shouldn't, but it's perfect. And you know, we just experimenting and just stumbling onto stuff is definitely the best way to do these things.
Right. Well, I loved seeing, of course, the Caveat rabbit in the store. I think I saw the egg. Did I see the egg from Hatch in there somewhere?
It's up the top shelf, and there's the recorder from Hungry Hickory, and the bunny and the symbol monkey from Hatch. It's just all this random stuff that you put in there. Yeah. It's not the same. It's the same designer, Lisa Zagone. She made the rabbit for Caveat, but the rabbit's gone. I don't have it anymore. But she built, like she said, I've made you a hare. I've made you like a bigger, meaner version of it. So I don't know if it comes across in the film, but when you're holding it, it's much bigger and kind of does look like that hare version of her rabbit, you know. So but I love her. It was just great to have something of hers in the film, just because she's got such a great kind of aesthetic. The way she makes these things look so decayed. That's great.
I love the you kind of created your own little Easter eggs through your shorts that you include, though. What's next for you? Can you tell us anything about? You said you were in meetings. I guess earlier before we got on. So can you tell us about the next feature?
Probably can't say much about it. You know, you don't want to jinx these things either. But all going well, we'll be filming into the year, maybe start next year. But it's again, it's just to continue to build on what I've done. You know, like Caveat was tiny film, and then you know, Oddity is a small movie, and then hopefully the next thing we're working on now is slightly bigger again. But again, it's keeping that same horror and character and kind of a claustrophobic situation and setting, and trying to just build on it each time.
Okay.
And again, it's an Irish set, so
Right.
yeah.
Is Shudder involved in this one at all yet, or do you still have a good working relationship with them at all?
Oh yeah, Shudder are amazing. I mean, like Shudder were Emily and Sam at Shudder, like they're just fantastic, and they're even with the script on Oddity, there's lovely little notes, or just when the edit, like on just maybe sometimes something might just maybe pull people out of a little bit. So they were brilliant to work with. Because they would have taken on Caveat, we would have shot Caveat, obviously, they would have distributed. But then, because I think I got on very well with them, and we just seemed to hit it off, and they liked the script for Oddity, so they were just behind it 100%, which was great. So yeah, I'd love to keep working with them for sure.
We'd love to work with them too. So if you got any pull, let them know we got a game show that will blow their mind away. So
yeah.
Oh yeah,
just,
really? Okay.
Yeah.
All horror themed. No, Damian, hear me out though, man. If we could do something here, man. We could take this down like that whole Conjuring thing. You take the Darcy's Oddity Shop, right? You've got a franchise for a decade, man, with the little oddities in there, man.
It's been pitched. I think it was even pitched to me at South by Southwest. Somebody was like, "On a series of this would be great. I'd like to see more Darcy and all of her haunted items." So
I think it was a Nina from Collider. I think it was her.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think it was. Yeah, I think I watched that interview.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, I tried to kind of, despite they just little links between the films, I almost try to. I miss films that are kind of one and done, So I think when I get to the end of my script, I try to kill everybody, and even with Oddity, I burnt the wooden man, so there's no way that there's a sequel, and just everything's gone, and but there's always prequels. But I don't know. I think I'd always prefer to move on to something else.
It's great. Hey, you're one of our favorite up and comers in the genre, man. We're happy to have you here. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Where can people follow you on social media? You still have the website he dies at the end.com?
I have hediesatattheend.com, and I kept it. I mean, I don't know why I really have it. It's the same with social media. I have an Instagram account. I don't even use it. I kind of just randomly. I more use it to follow people, or to And at the moment, it seems to be people are following me, but give them another week, they'll be like, this guy hasn't posted anything in the years. So what's the point? I'm on Instagram anyway. So how's the movie going? And I have hediesatattheend.com. It's just a kind of a handy place to keep all the shorts together and just have a little blurb about me. I always think I'll do more with it. It's just kind of nice to have it. Yeah, that's it. I'm not too hard to find. I'd say Instagram's probably the thing. I get a lot of messages there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Damian, again, thank you very much for coming on. I think, like I said, we've been, at least Zigzag and I have been talking about Oddity since we saw it, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and best of luck with what you got coming up.
Oh, cheers, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you. It's lovely to talk about.
At this point, I could say no bullshit. We rank our top movies of the year every year. Oddity is sitting in my top 3 as we sit right now. So let's see. Got a couple more to see, but man, this is a strong effort. And everybody, get out there and see Oddity, man, because you will. It's going to scare the shit out of you. It's great.
All right. Thanks again. DCS out, guys. Woo! All right. That's our.